Hello, everyone. It's Michelle here. And this month, for the Digital Dealer exclusive, we are doing the pineapple crossbody bag. This is so cute. It's going to be kind of a fun little project. We're going to have a great time with it. So in this part of our video, I'm going to go over what's in your kit. So I'm just going to set the directions aside. If you got your kit from A1, you have some fabric in there. So I've had these stacked 1 through 5. So fabric 1, I'll start at the backs. Fabric 1 is your bigger piece. And that's going to be your lining and some of your outside and also your strap and the back. And then you have fabric 2, which is the white, fabric 3, which is the tan, fabric 4, which looks like little stars, and fabric 5, which is white and orange. And each of these are a different size, and we'll be subcutting them into pieces as well. In addition to that, you have a zipper. You have your stabilizer, which is cutaway stabilizer for the no-show mesh, or the mesh stabilizer for both. This is a 2 hooping. So we're going to be working on the back of the bag first, the quilting part of the back of the bag, and then the front of the bag where the pineapple pineapple pattern is, and then joining them together. So we'll need 2 pieces of the mesh stabilizer. And then we have 2 pieces of batting. After all this fabric, we'll need 2 pieces of batting that are going to fill our 5x7, that are going to finish off our 5x7 bag, and a 5x7-ish piece of SF101 embroidery backing. So, and then 2 1/2-inch D-rings to hold the strap for us. So that's what's in your kit. Let's take a look at some of the instructions and see what other supplies will be handy. Your digital dealer subscription this month, hello, I'll get it right soon enough, came with 2 different sizes, the 5x7, which is the one this video is based on, and also the one we will be doing in the live class, as well as an 8x12. So you have, besides the things listed, you will need some thread and some bobbin thread. So you can just use embroidery for this, thread for this, and you can use peach thread with coordinating fabric or yellow thread with coordinating fabric as desired. So whatever color makes your heart happy, that's the color of thread you can use. And then we're going to be doing some subcutting. So for the 5x7 design, we're going to be doing some subcutting of our strips of fabric. And I will be videoing that as we do it. But it gives you a picture here of how some of this is. So fabric 5, fabric 4, fabric 3, 2, and 1. So that's how we're going to pre-cut it. This is for the 8x12 design. So rotary cutter and ruler obviously would be something that would be detrimental to your success of cutting all this fabric. And then we have the design itself. We also are going to use a washable fabric marker, and a ruler will be helpful as well. And I think that's all we need to know for now. So I'm looking at all of these little pieces that we're going to have to flip and fold. And I'm going to say that paper tape's probably going to be pretty important too. So some kind of tape to tape it down with. Could be paper tape, could be transport tape. Doesn't really matter. But you're going to have to tape some of this fabric down. So let's stand by and we'll get started. All right, so to prepare for class, I pre-cut all my fabrics. These are based on the cutting chart on page 5 for the 5x7. And then just because I wanted to be sure not to mix them up, I went ahead and labeled mine. So same order as in the previous video, 1 through 5. And if you forget, there is a chart on page 23. And I really like this. And I feel like printing this chart can be a handy thing to do, because if you forget along the way while you're flipping and folding and piecing all of these pieces, you have something you can refer back to and say, was that the right color? Did I pick the right color? And you can say, oops, nope, I need the other one. So that's why I felt like I really feel like anything that has a lot of smaller pieces and more than one or two fabrics really does better if I label it. So that's what I did. I have everything pre-cut according to the chart. It's labeled, and I have this chart printed and ready to use as a reference. So I'm going to set that aside for now. And then this is what they consider to be a 5-part project, not because it really is as consuming as you think, but because there's 5 different sets of steps. So I'm going to begin with part 1 of the project, and that is preparing the fabric. So I'm going to use the fusible that was included, is going to go to the wrong side of the back fabric. It says do not use fusible backing on any other fabric in this project. It will make folding the fabric more difficult. So I'm going to look on my chart and see which fabric is my back fabric. So that would be my purse back. So back fabric is fabric 1. So that means that there's going to be a fabric 1 piece in here that matches this. So let's see. Here's fabric 1. Here's my strap. That's coming up too. So I'll set that aside. And here it is right here. So I can take that piece and set these aside with its little label. And this is going to be the one that I'm going to attach. This is my bag back, the outside, not the lining. So this is my bag back. This is where I'm going to attach this. So then let me take a look at the next steps. So I also have to fold the above zipper fabric in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and press well. And then also the below zipper fabric in half lengthwise and press well. So again, I'm going to refer to my chart and go, okay, what are my zipper fabrics? I think they're the same ones, but above zipper, below zipper, those are both the same fabrics. And they are the pieces that I cut 2.5 by 5.5. So I'm going to grab those 2 pieces. These 2 pieces are going to get pressed wrong sides together. So I'm going to just set that over there on the pile of the pre-stuff I have to do. Make sure I leave my label here so I can remember. And then let's see what else. Fold the above zipper lining. The above zipper lining down. Oh, so I've got this. This is number 2. Fold the below. Fold the above zipper lining fabric down 1/2 inch on one long edge. So let me go. Above zipper lining or below zipper lining. Oh, above and below zipper lining is fabric 3 or fabric 5. I'm sorry. So that means it's this. So this must be my above zipper. And one of these must be my below zipper. Yes. So I'm going with those. I'm going to fold the above zipper lining fabric down 1/2 inch on one long edge, wrong sides together. So I'm pressing a folded edge for it. And then fold the below zipper lining 1/2 inch on the short edge, wrong sides together. Like this. All right, so I've got all of these together. I'm going to go ahead and do my pre-kit prep work for this. And then I'm going to take my 2 pieces that are going to become my strap. I'm going to take them and I am going to sew them together. Although this just says 1. It was 2 by width of fabric. Okay, so I have the other one somewhere else. I'm going to go grab the other one, and then we're going to sew these 2 together on the diagonal. All right, I am back with the second piece. So I can give a little visual here. You want to do them You want to cross it like this. And then we're going to sew from here to here. So what that is going to allow us to do is open it up, and we're just going to have a continuation. So it's one continuous piece. And then the folding and stuff we'll do in the next segment. So I'm going to get all of this stuff prepped. I'm going to iron all of my fabric with a little bit of best press, and I will be attaching the interfacing and pressing all of the pieces according to the instructions on page 7. All right, so I'm at the sewing machine. This is one of those unusual embroidery projects where you don't really have to use embroidery thread. I'm going to use one of the variegated cotton threads because there's no embroidery stitches per se. In other words, everything that's on the entire project is just a row of straight stitching, sewing things together. So that kind of opens it up for whatever thread you might want to use. So I'm using this orange variegated since I have the orange fabrics. And I'm going to begin by stitching my 2 pieces together to put my strap together, since that strap should probably be assembled actually before class if you're going to put a strap on it. Okay, so I'm on a luminaire. So I'm going to utilize my drop light. So there's my drop light. I'm going to turn that on. And I'm going to let the drop light do the work for me. So it's set right now at a position 0, which means it's on a center needle position. So I'm going to close that, and you can kind of see the light there on my fabric. So I'm going to begin by dropping my needle, by the needle down, so that I can back it up so that my needle is right in the crook of where, right here. And then I'm just going to kind of rotate until I can see that my drop light is going to end up over here. And then I'm just going to start stitching. And so if you can see this on there, I'm just watching my little red drop light there. And I'm just keeping my eyes on keeping the drop light at the other corner. And I just usually will run off the edge. And so now I've got my 2 pieces joined together, and I'll take those over and press them according to the pattern directions. All right, so I've trimmed the excess off. I'm going to go ahead and press this flat and then press the seam open. And then I'm just going to use a little flapper there for a minute so that it sucks up all of the excess heat, making it be a nice flat seam. All right, so to create the strap part, we are actually going to fold it right sides together. And this is going to make a 1/2 inch strap. So we're going to fold it right sides together and press, because then you'll have a seam there. Then you're going to open it up and bring each side into the center and then fold it back in half. So the directions for this can be found on page 8. Look at step 6 of folding right sides together and press, opening it up. Step 8 is to fold the raw edges towards the center, and then fold together in half, and then top stitch all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and begin that process of pressing, and I will meet you back at the sewing machine. All right, so I have my strap folded, and I have a clip to hold it together while I stitch it. And I'm going to begin by top stitching on the right side here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down on the so I'm going to try to run the edge of my strap right along with my feed dogs there. And I have my left, I have it in far right needle position. So I've moved my needle all the way over to the right. My stitch length is a 2.5. And I'm going to keep my eyes right there so that I can just kind of watch the edge of my strap run right along the feed dogs there. And I'm working on the folded edge first because that way it'll be easier to work on the other side. All right. So here's where I'm going to veer off of the directional path. So if I turn this around and I go the other direction, this is going to end up with a twisty strap because it's a thin strap and I push the fabric one way and then I'm going to push it the other way if I turn around, sew it up the other side. So I'm not going to do that. Two things you can do if you're good with, visually watching the other side, you can just mirror image your needle to the other side, do the same thing, put the edge up against those feed dogs and just stitch. Or if you're not good with that, you can just from here turn it over to the other side and then just go in the same direction. Either way, you want the strap going the same way when you sew on each side. So this is where I started. I came down this way. So what I do not want to do is turn around and go up that way because I could push the fabric in opposite directions, causing a strap that twists. I want it going in the same direction. So I'm just going to mirror image. And now I'm going to run that edge of the strap And I'm going to do a visual of having that one on the edge of that feed dog. And since it's, I don't have clips in there anymore, I can sew this side much better. But what'll happen is you'll end up with a much flatter strap, especially when they're this narrow. So if you look at that, that's pretty straight strap coming out the other end. Right. There's my top stitch strap. It's got a nice straight, straight, not curvy, not twisty. And so I'm going to take it over, and this is something that you should pre-measure before class about where you want your bag. If you're going to add the strap, where you want your bag to hit around your waist, towards your waist, over your shoulder, how you want to wear it. And then you're going to cut your strap off according to that measurement. And I believe it shows you how to do that in the directions. So let's take a peek. So yes, a little further on, it shows you on how to do that using a tape measure. However, you could do the same measurement with the strap. And so this is all you're going to do for your strap is prep it, stitch it down, and then measure it to the length that you want, because you still need to make some little tabs for your D-rings to actually put on the bag itself. So just take your strap, measure it where you want it to fit, add 3 inches, and cut it to your height. All right, so we're going to begin. We're actually on part 3 because we've already done our stitching here. And then you would have cut your 2 tabs from the strap. If you don't get those before class, it's not a big deal. Cut 2 1 3/4 inch tabs. And I prepared my tabs by actually sewing across the top. You don't have to do that. It doesn't say it in the direction. And the 1/2 inch tabs don't actually twist that much. But sometimes when you have larger D-rings, you go to hang something and the D-ring wants to kind of go sideways in your tab there. So I always just use my zipper foot and sew up really close to the edge of the D-ring. All right, so we're gonna hoop the one piece of our mesh stabilizer in the 5x7 hoop. And we're also going to bring the design onto the screen. And we're going to do the design for the back of the bag first. So you're going to grab your bag back piece. So your bag back piece is, well, for me, it's the orange. It's the one that I prepared with the SF101 on the back. Get my stabilizer in there. And I'm still using the same variegated cotton thread that I was using for my sewing, because again, even though it's going to do like a quilted pattern, it's just a running stitch. It's not like it's going to do a fill stitch embroidery design or anything. So when that happens, it kind of opens it up for me to sew with whatever I want to sew with. Pretty much none of our stitching, other than what you've already done on your strap, pretty much none of it's actually going to show. Maybe right where the zipper, where you tack your zipper down, that might show. But other than that, none of it's going to show. So it's all straight lines. So we're good to go. All right, I'm going to bounce over to the sewing machine here. And I have the bag back pattern on the screen of my machine here. There we go. So I'm just going to select embroidery. Again, I have both the same thread in the top and in the bobbin. Slide my hoop on and sew out color stop 1. So in your directions, you'll find several different numbers. So right now I'm on page 8. I'm on where in the middle, around the middle of the page where it says quilting the back of the crossbody bag. So we have some steps here. There are 1 through 7 on this page. And then we have some numbers here by the sewing machines. The numbers with the sewing machines indicate color stops, or if you, an easier way to think of it is it indicates when your machine is going to stop for you to change color. In this case, we don't really need to change color to anything, but what we probably will have to do when it stops is add something. So that's where I will refer to these as color stops. And these will match the numbers up here on the top of your machine. So right now I haven't sewn anything, so I'm 0 of 5. So I have loaded the design. I pooped my stabilizer. I'm now going to sew step number 3, color stop number 1, which is the batting placement line. So I'm just going to press go. Slide my hoop forward a little bit, and I'll clip that excess piece of thread there. And the next step is for me to place my base project batting over and stitch the batting tack down line. You have 2 pieces of batting, both of them are the same size. So I'm going to place that over the lines here. And then it's going to tack this down. You can tape it if you'd like. I'm pretty comfortable holding it, so I'm just going to hold it while it stitches. All right, my next step, which is step number 6, says that I need to trim the batting close to the stitching line. So I'm going to take my hoop off and take it over to the table. And I'm going to use my little curved edge femoris to clean that up. You want to trim as close to, but not through your stitching line. Oh, these need to be sharpened. Let's see if there's another pair in there. They're bigger ones, but look at that. Much easier to trim with, huh? All right. Okay. I came pretty close to matching up that top line there. That's kind of, I try to do that because that gives you one less edge you have to trim. Came pretty close. All right. That's trimmed. Let's see what's next. So then I'm going to place the back fabric right side up, completely covering the batting. So my back fabric is, again, the fabric that I attached the SF-101 to. So that would be this. And with this, I'm just going to give it a light spray of the Ginold KK100. And not a lot, just a little bit. That way it'll keep it in place, enough to keep it in place, but not enough to make my needle sticky. So I'm just going to take it over to my dime tent and give it a little bit of a spray. Just a little. Don't need it to be really sticky, just a little sticky. It's going to actually sew a tack down before it starts quilting, I think. So it just needs to kind of stay in place. I got a little bit there, a little bit there. I kind of feel for the batting, and then I'm good to go. So I'm going to take this back over to the sewing machine, and I will see you over there. All right, so we're going to sew out at least two color stops. Actually, we're going to sew out the last three color stops. So the first one is to stitch the back fabric tack down line, and do not trim the fabric. Then you're going to sew the quilting detail, and then you want to stitch registration mark using a visible thread color. And then using it says using a water soluble pen, mark a T at the top of the project. So we are going to go ahead and do that. Now, because I have matched my bobbin thread and top thread, I'm going to be able to see that registration mark on the back as well as on the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and press go. This should be fun with my variegated orange thread on this print. It's kind of creamsicle and orange. So this was color stop number 3. Color stop number 4 is going to be my quilting pattern. And you'll see that really it's just doing a running stitch. So there's no satin stitching in there. So there's no fill stitching. It's just doing a running stitch. So I can do it with any kind of thread that I want. So there are times when you can just use, your 100% cotton thread that you would normally quilt with. You can just use that on your embroidery machine too. All right, so the last two things that are going to stitch are going to be my registration marks. Now, if you are using a thread color that you can't easily see, because this is how you're going to match up the back to the front for the last stitch up. So if you are using a thread color that you cannot readily see from the back, then I am going to just change out just so that you can see to something a little bit more bold. Mainly because I'll be putting this back part right side down over the front part when the front's done. So I want to be able to see these registration marks. So I'm going to go ahead and sew them out with purple on the back, and you'll see what I mean when we're done. So it's just a few stitches, but it's a few stitches that from the back side I need to see, because it's going to allow me to align the back with the front. And since I don't have excess quilting, only as much quilting as I need for the bag, it's kind of important that I be able to match up my corners. Some of you might be familiar with this in that you might actually do something like this when you have like an in the hoop tiling scene or in the hoop quilt blocks, so that when you put them right sides together and you sew the pieces together, you can actually see where your stitching line is. All right, so we're done with the back. Let me take that hoop off and show you what I mean. And then I'm going to put my other thread back in. All right, so see this from the back, I can easily see where the purple is. Those are my alignment stitches. Those are my alignment stitches when I go to align the back with the front of the bag. All right, so we are done with the back and we're going to be moving on to the front. Resuming our project. So this was my project back that I finished. When I turn it over, I can see, I just went over them with a disappearing pen so that you could see them clearer. And I also have the letter T for what's going to be the top. I don't think it matters because the print is the same. The squares, the triangles and stuff are the same. So I just made one end be the top. So this is done. I can set it aside with my strap and with my D-rings. I have hooped my 5x7 hoop with the last piece of stabilizer. We are doing part 4, the piecing and finishing the bag in the hoop. Now here's where it just gets really consuming. So I have the design on my machine and there are 71 color stops. So 71 color stops means that the machine's going to stop for us to perform some sort of task 71 times. So it includes like the zipper and it includes all of the piecing to make the pineapple. So I still have my fabrics labeled as fabric 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I did press the pieces that I was supposed to press and prep. So I'm going to begin by stitching my batting line placement. So I'm still sewing with the cotton variegated thread, and I have it both in the top and in the bobbin. Again, this is running stitches. There's no heavy embroidery in it, so I pretty much can sew it with whatever thread I want. Plus, I have done embroidery with the cotton thread, but now I have it both in the top and the bobbin. If you want to use bobbin thread, embroidery machine bobbin thread in there, you're welcome to do so. Certainly doesn't matter one way or the other. So I'm going to meet you over at the machine. All right, I have my design on the screen. Again, we are doing the 5x7 project in class. If you're doing the larger project, the steps will be the same. The pieces will just be bigger. So I'm, excuse me, I'm looking at my instructions and my first color stop is to stitch the batting placement line. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go through each of the stops and just leave the camera on the hoop. I'm going to try to do most of my placement from this angle so that I don't have to keep swapping the camera back and forth between the machine and the table. So here's my placement line for my batting. All right, my next step is to place my batting down, and it's going to stitch the pieced template. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I usually try to place one side so it's almost completely on the line, so that it makes trimming only 3 sides instead of 4. Feel free to tape. I'm pretty brave with my fingers, I suppose. So now it's going to begin to create my template for my placement. Oh, looks like my needle came unthreaded, but it hasn't figured it out yet. All right. So my next step is to trim close to the stitching line of the batting. I'm going to go ahead and take that off camera and do that step, and then I will be right back. All right, now's the time where you might want to grab your reference sheet and keep it close by so you can make sure you grab the right fabric. So according to my directions, I'm taking the fabric 1 square and I'm laying it down over that center right here. And I can either tape it, or I think I'm just going to hold it. It's going to stitch the trimming and placement line. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. Yep, the pieces are plenty big enough. You have lots of room. So I'm going to grab the piece 2 fabric right side down. So if I look at piece 2, I have them labeled. Those are my lighter colored fabrics. So there's 2 different sizes. The smaller size is going to go, or 3 different sizes probably. Yeah, the smaller pieces are going to go towards the inside. And as our pattern grows, then the larger pieces of fabric will go. So the piece 2 fabric right side down, but I'm going to trim this line first. So I'm going to pick that up and just grab my scissors, and I'm just going to trim. That's going to be a placement line, so I can trim right up to those stitches. I'm going to sit this over here. I'm going to grab my fabric number 2, lay it on top, and you can either tape it down or you can hold it like me. And I'm going to stitch the seam. Go ahead and actually turn your irons on as well, because we're going to be pressing this in the hoop as we go along. So if you don't have a mini iron, then you're probably going to, well, 5x7 hoop, I think a standard iron actually fits in it. All right, I have pressed it down, pressed it flat, pressed it up. If you have a small hoop-sized clapper that will fit in here, or a wood block, it helps to actually press these seams really flat. So I am looking at, I just completed step number 12 on page 10. And then now I'm going to do color stop number 5, which is stitching the trimming placement line for the next piece of fabric. All right, I'm going to do a trim. So I'm going to trim this piece of fabric, and then I am going to place piece 3 fabric right side down. All right, I'm going to trim this here. So I'm not trimming. See, I have a little, the tack down line here from across. So I'm only going to be able to trim that so much. But that's fine. I have plenty I can trim. But what I did was folded it in half so I could kind of keep somewhat even. And then the same over here. All right, so that's trimmed. And then, now that that's trimmed, I am now going to take piece 3 and fold it right side down. So if we look at our sheet here, I can see that this was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all going to be the shorter pieces of the white fabric. So, and then as I get to the larger, you can see where the longer pieces of fabric will come into play. So these are all the shortest of the white fabrics. I believe they were, let's see, let me see. So that fabric was fabric 2. So I have 4 pieces that were cut 2 by 3, 4 pieces that were cut 2 by 3.5, and 4 pieces that were cut 2 by 4.5, or 2 by 4. So each as the pineapple builds up, we're going to need the longer pieces for these outside, but for the inside we're okay. So I'm just going to align this with the placement line. You can go, I'm going to go down, I'm going to start at the end down there, and then I'm going to stitch that one across there, and then I'm going to take it over and trim. I'm going to trim and press. So now I'm going to fold this way. And because my fabric below is orange, I am going to trim a little. Oh, I can't trim a little. I'll just leave that excess there because that'll kind of block it from the orange coming through. So I'm just going to take this over and press it fold and press to the right side up, and then stitch the trimming and placement line. So I'll be right back. All right, back for the next placement line. Now with this one, I can actually trim. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold this part up so I can kind of make a line with my fingernail so that I know where to trim. And then this will follow suit across. All right, back on. And it's the next placement line. We are on color stop 8. Oh, I guess I should have pushed. All right, I'm about to sew color stop 8. I have aligned my fabric even with the placement line. And it's going to go do my little tack down line for me. We are on step 22, page 10, last step. We're going to be flipping a page here. So I'm going to take this over and I'm going to press and fold, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm turning over to page 11, and I've got all of these on here now. I'm going to do that final for the white anyway, placement line of this side of the white side, the white pieces. And then I'm going to do a good trim and put on that last white piece. So each time I trim, I'm going to try to fold this back and keep this even. So just so I don't make it too short. If I leave it too long, it's not as bad as if I make it too short. Then I've got a problem. And trim the orange as well, all the way across. And then I'm going to place down, before I sew again, I'm going to line up my fabric with the placement line there. And it's evenly dispersed. So I've got an equal amount of white on each side of the square, and lining it up with the actual placement line and doing the stitch. All right, so what comes next? Flip and fold and press. And then what? All right, so the trimming line is going to come up next. And I believe I am moving on into fabric. I'm going to move on. Let me look at my list. I'm going to move on to fabric 3. If I look here, I can see that I've got all 4 of my whites. And now I'm going to come up with, it's going to start sewing on the diagonal. So that means I'm going to place piece 6 right side down. So piece 6 I look at my chart, P6 is fabric number 3. So I'm going to go ahead and press this and I will be right back. All right, here we go. Color stop number 11. And if you look at your directions, we are going to be trimming these corners on the white here. And we're going to trim the fabric as close to the stitching line as we can. So I'm going to take that off. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just kind of extend that line with a finger press so that way I can trim equally all the way across without and still have enough left at the other end if I need it. All right, fabric number 3. Again, the shorter pieces of fabric number 3, because the longer pieces are for the outside. So I'm going to place fabric 3 right side down, right up against that placement line. And I try to always look and see if I have equal amounts, especially when you're starting to fold on the diagonal. Make sure you have equal amounts of fabric at each end of that placement line. Right side against the fabric. So right sides together. And then we're going to stitch it, press it, and flip and fold it. I think you're getting the hang of this. All right, I'm going to take that over to the ironing board and quickly press it and fold it. All right, I'm going to fold this back. That's my placement line. I'll get some of this out of the way. And we'll fold this one back a little bit too. Again, I'm using my fingers to do like a little finger press just to make sure I don't cut them off unevenly. And again, I have a line here. That line indicates my stitching line. I want to have equal amount of fabric on each side of that stitching line from here to here. So I want to try to make it kind of even. All right. I'm going to press and flip. All right, check your press. Make sure you have pointy points here. Make sure that when you fold it over, you fold it over all the way. That's where a clapper sometimes, or a wood block, however you want to call it, comes in handy to kind of get a really sturdy press, really flat. All right, so I am on color stop number 15, which means that I am on step 38. On the bottom of page 11. It's going by fast. Of course, I'm only on step 15, color stop 15 of 71, but we're making progress. All right. I am on color stop 16, which means I'm on step 41. I'm stitching out a placement line. All right. Lining up on my placement line. Oops, I guess I should have stitched that. I forgot I needed to put my fabric down. So let me go back one step here. Line up my fabric on the placement line. And I need to flip and fold. Okay, let's see if I can get that one right the next time around, because I did it on the first one too. Okay, so I am on color stop number 17. And here we go. Oops, not yet. Which means I am now on page 12. And I'm trimming. All right. Right, this time I'm going to move the camera over by the iron, because I want to show you what I mean by a mini pressing block and what it does. All right, so I'm going to just press flat with my iron. Now, if I have a big, it doesn't fit all the way in there, but a small one does. Plus, it has ridges for my fingers to make it easy to hold on to. I'm going to take this over. I'm going to give it its fold and its press. And then I'm going to put this little piece of wood over it until it cools a little bit. Consequently, what happens is you get a really, really sharp seam. So it's really nice. It kind of keeps some of the bulk out of your seams and makes them all nice and square and pressed flat, razor sharp edges, and you have all of your little points. All right, I am back over here at the machine. I am on color stop number 19, which is on page 12, piece 10, step number 48. So we finished all of our parts of our pineapple that had the dark. So now we're going back to the light colored fabric again. So we're going to go back, which was fabric 2. We're going back to that, and now it'll be the next largest piece. of fabric too. So I'm going to start by sewing out my placement line. And then I'm going to trim my fabric. Let's see if I can get that one that I always end up having to back up on because I forget. I trim and I forget to place the actual fabric down on the placement line before I push go. All right, I'm going to go press and flip and fold. All right, so now I am on color stop 21, which means that I am on step 53. Stitch the trimming placement line. Here we go. All right.
I just didn't want you to be confused as we're trying to track the other orders. I'll do it tomorrow as long as I try not to. I'll try to do it over the weekend.
All right, so now I'm on color stop 23. Let me look.
I think she and I will probably work that Sunday morning to try to do her up so she can take the day off.
All right, another trimming placement line. And I'm going to place my white fabric down on that placement line. And stitch. I don't know. I didn't do it this time. I don't know. I must have skipped one the last time instead of. But I'm making some progress. I'm flipping and pressing this fabric right side up. I'm officially done with page 12, moving on to page 13. Stitch the trimming placement line. I didn't miss one this time. I didn't miss a step. Ooh, and we're done with another section after we do this one. All right, we're moving on to piece 14 after this. And if you look at your schematics, you know it's a different color fabric. So it's fabric 4. All right, so I'm going to grab my fabric 4 pieces. I am doing color stop number 27, which is the stitch and trimming placement line for fabric for piece 14, which is fabric number 4. Oh, so on this one, we're actually using the longer strip first because the shorter strip is for our corners. So you're going to be using the longer piece of fabric instead of the shorter one, which is what we've been doing. So I'm going to go flip and fold this. and press. About that. Color stop 29. So right about now, you can see why good pressing comes in handy when some of these seams start to come together and you've got multiple layers of fabric. Where that little clapper or wooden pressing block, whatever you choose to call it, comes in the rescue. Color stop 33. Top of page 14. And the last, we're going to trim this down, and this will be the last of the orange ones. It's going pretty fast, I think. Still a lot. We're a little over the halfway point with steps here. Okay, we're back on to the last of the whites. So it should be your longer strips of the white or fabric 2. I'm going to trim. And we are back to the white, which is fabric number 2. So we are on, let's see, color stop 36, which puts us at step 91 on page 14. So for the next couple, I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video and finish the piecing. It's the same all the way through. And then I'll come back right after we get done sewing on piece number 29, which will be in the lower corner here. All right, I have completed step number 149 on page 17, and that was to trim the top fabric here. For color stop number 60, it's going to sew out the zipper placement line. And then we want to trim just the batting from inside the box, not the stabilizer. So let's go ahead and do that placement line. All right, so I'm going to take this over to the table. I'm just going to trim my batting out. And then I'm going to center my zipper right side up inside the box with the pull on the left. Be sure that the zipper pull and the stop are outside of your stitching area. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, so I trimmed my batting out there, and now I'm going to tape down my zipper. And I'm going to tape it down. Make sure your zipper pulls to the left, and make sure that the metal stop is on the outside, and just tape it down inside that placement. Give yourself, your zipper's long enough to give yourself plenty of room that you shouldn't have to be stitching over any of the parts that you should never hit with an embroidery foot, like a zipper pull or a zipper stop, stuff like that. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of tape here. And I'm just using transport tape. It's easily removable from fabric. Well, maybe I should eke that out a little bit more. All right, so I've got my zipper in place. I'm going to take it to the machine and sew the next zipper stop. I apologize. I said the next zipper stop, and it's actually the next color stop. So we are on color stop number 61. It is step number 153. We have taped the zipper in place, taped over the zipper teeth, and be sure to tape the zipper at the batting edges. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this next stop. It's actually going to run over the zipper teeth at the other end. This is actually going to sew our zipper in place for us. We have finished page 17, flipping over to page 18. We're getting there. So we're going to remove the hoop from the machine and remove the tape. Place the raw edges of the below zipper fabric on the trimming placement line stitched in direction step 148. So where was the, oh, that's going to be this one here probably. Let's see, 148, step 148. Where are you, 148? Yes, this is the line. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And okay. I'm going to bring the camera over to the table. All right, so I'm going to take my tape off of my zipper. And then let's read this together again. So here's the line they're talking about. I've got a zipper top and a zipper bottom. I'm going to place the raw edges of the zipper bottom. They're the same, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. I'm going to place that on that line that I used, that was the line that I used to trim with, because essentially I'm going to sew it down and then flip it up. So I'm going to put it on there as straight as I can, because that's going to depend on how straight I put it on there, depends on how straight it's going to be when I flip it up. And I'll just use this extra piece of tape from the zipper to kind of hold it down. And I'm going to take that over to the machine and sew the next color stop, not the zipper stop, the color stop.
Yeah, they missed
All right, here we go. So this is going to sew that piece down. So then what we're going to do now is I'm taking this tape off. So we have done 157. No, we have done 156. Now we're going to do 157, which is fold this up against the zipper teeth. Just press and tape in place. So let's go press that. All right, here we go. I pressed it up. So my folded edge is now up against the zipper teeth, just below the zipper teeth, not right up against them, because otherwise you won't be able to unzip the zipper. The teeth will get caught. So we're going to stitch the next stitching line, and that's going to tack that down. All right, let's see what's next. We are on color stop number 64. So I'm going to take the hoop off. I'm going to turn it to the back and cut away the stabilizer from inside the zipper placement line that is over the zipper, so that I can see the back of the zipper. Again, going to the table. All right, so here's my zipper. It's just the stabilizer behind the zipper that I'm cutting away. I'm not going outside the lines. I'm going to color within the lines, okay? So right within the lines. And so like if you lift it, you can see that your zipper is now exposed on the back side there. trimming right along that zipper tack down line. All right, so now I zipper's free from the backside. Let's see what's next. On the back of the hoop, place the below zipper lining fabric right side up. So the fold is aligned just below the zipper teeth. So this is that piece of lining fabric that I did the 1/2 inch fold on. I'm going to turn my hoop over to the wrong side. I'm going to align it right below the zipper teeth, and I'm going to tape it in place. This I'm definitely going to tape in place. I'm going to be kind of careful when I'm taping on this side because I don't want to push my stabilizer out. But when I get done, I'm going to flip the hoop over to the right side, and I'll press a little bit harder on the tape. So now I can just really press here because I'm not going to push the zipper out or push the stabilizer out. All right, let's see what we're doing next. That's taped down and covers the cut edge of the stabilizer. Yes, we do that. We did do that. Yes. Stitch the below zipper lining tack down line. So that is going to be color stop number 64. We're getting there. Yay. All right, here we go. All right, so we're going to take the above zipper piece, and this time we're going to work with the folded edge. So we're going to align the folded edge just right above the zipper. And then I am going to sew the next stop. Since this is just straight fabric and it's a small piece, I'm not worried too much about tape. All right. We are on page 19. So I'm going to stitch the above zipper. So it's going to go all the way around now. Wait. Do I have to tape something? Nope, not for this. So we're sewing color stop 65. Yes, I do have to tape something. All right. Oh, I already did that. So now I am going to take it off. And I am going to do the above zipper that I folded. So that's this piece. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to align it up with the back of the zipper here. And this I will tape into place because I have to turn the hoop over. We're getting really close to 71. All right. All right, so the next thing to do is to stitch the quilting detail. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, I'm just going to do it with the thread that I have on. So that is color stop number 67. Oops, it looks like I'm out of bobbin thread. All right, back with the full bobbin. All right, so let's see where we're at. We are at 68. Yay. All right, so I have already prepared my D-rings ahead of time. They were in one of the first videos, and that's because I like to put a reinforcement right up against the rings so that they can't wander. So I am just going to sew the placement lines for those D-rings. That's what's up next. And so if you have one side you like better than the other, let's talk about that, because we're going to put them down like this and tape them, but then when you're open, it's going to come up like this. So if the back where I stitched is not as nice as the front, I'm going to put the back side down. And use some of my tape that was on the back. You're probably wondering if I stitched through my tape. I was wondering if I stitched through my tape, but I did not. So I can take that off. And I've got kind of a wad of thread right here that it's just a placement line. So I'm going to get rid of that. Other than that, everything looks good. Look at my quilting, looks so pretty on the inside. All right, I'm going to take my my 2 tabs and I'm going to tape them to the placement line. If you want, you can tape 2 places. You can tape the top of it to the placement line up here. I'm going to go across. And if you want, you can actually just put a little piece of tape on the metal part so it doesn't move around. So be sure that you've got this so that the fold of where your D-ring is facing the zipper. All right, so it's going to now tack my D-rings down for me. All right, now for the most important part of your project. You thought all of this was the important part. This next step is the most important part because it will all be in vain if you don't open your zipper pull. It means that when we close up the bag, the zipper pull is going to be on the outside of the bag. We don't want that. So I can take all of this off now. Open your zipper pull. Open it halfway at least. I would say only almost 3/4 at least. It's a small bag. You got to be able to turn it inside out from here and make sure that your zipper, this part of the zipper, if you open it 3/4 of the way, is not pointing that way. It's pointing this way, so you have no chance of hitting it because we're not going to be able to see what's going on right now. So I'm just going to put a little piece of tape there just to make sure it doesn't bounce. So, and then I'm going to turn my hoop to the other side. So I've got my, it says carefully place a thumbtack in each corner of the project. So what, oh, that thumbtack is so that I place my front on it. Okay. In each corner. All right, so there's a corner, there's a corner. I don't have a thumbtack. So maybe what I'll do is make a mark on this corner and this corner because I know what's coming next. This is coming next. So my top and I want to match my corners. So I can match them this way. Let's see. You can also use, if you have cam snaps, you can also use the head of the cam snap. It's usually pretty pointy. I'm gonna now I'm gonna flip this around and make sure that I still match my corners at the top. That matches. Although poking thumbtacks in there is kind of a good way to ensure that you do get your corners to match. But I think these are going to be okay because I can see the stitching really well. All right. Now that I've got that tape down, T is at the top. Smooth out quilted back, tape in place, remove thumbtacks, and stitch the back tack down. So this is number 70. We're almost there. All right, here we go. It looks like I came unthreaded. Okay. I will back up a few stitches. All right. Turning over to the back side, I am now going to place the back lining piece. That's this last piece from our final stitch before we can trim our bag and turn it inside out. So I'm going to place right sides together, This is really plenty big enough to cover. And it's going to be leaving an opening in the bottom here that you can turn the bag with. So leave enough that you can steam a seam, that seam closed after you have finished. All right, finally, color stop number 71. And tape and tape. I'm going to pull this tape off now. Looks like it matched up really good, so I'm happy. All right. I'll use one of these for the back here. And here we go. Color stop 71. This one will probably go around twice. It usually does. All right, we made it. All right, the rest of this is going to be over at the table with the iron. All right, so we're going to take this out of the hoop. And I am bringing a garbage can over because we're going to have a lot of debris when we trim this. So pop it out of the hoop. And I can set my hoop aside, make sure that my iron is turned on because I will be needing that. All right, so now I'm going to trim. I'm going to grab a big pair of scissors for trimming because this is going to be a lot of trimming here. A lot of layers. Not a lot of trimming, a lot of layers. So I'm going to trim down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, before I do the bottom, I have to be able to turn this. And I have to be able to have a seam that I can close the bottom with. So I'm going to leave just the lining pieces a little bit longer. So I'm going to trim those separate. So I'm going to fold them back and then trim the bottom, the front, actually, the outside pieces down to 1/4 of an inch. But I'm going to leave the lining pieces at about 1/2 inch. And I'm actually going to press the fold in it now. So I'm just going to, because that way it'll make it easier later. So just that one side, just so that now the fun begins. We have to turn this out inside out. I'm trimming the corners across at a 45-degree angle all the way up to the stitching line. All right, all that can go in the trash can. So I find that when things are warm, they're a little easier to turn. This has got a lot of fabric on it. It's got batting, and if you feel it, it's pretty stiff. So, and I have to turn this whole thing inside out. So I'm going to warm everything up. I'm just going to give it a really good press, and I'm going to try to work with it when it's somewhat hot, because that way it'll be easier to turn. And definitely around these corners, I'm giving it a good press, and I'm going to flatten it out with my little clapper. All right. Just be patient. It's going to take a while. It's really thick. So you're going to work it around. Maybe I can grab that from the inside and pull it. And you can kind of squish it. Once you kind of get it started, it gets easier. And when we get towards the end, you can use like a chopstick or something to kind of push your corners out. But we just got to get, the hard part is getting it all to the right side. I know, looks pretty, it's pretty stiff because of all of the stitching and all of the fabrics. We're getting there though. There we go. There we go. I think I got it. I got one more corner. There we go. All right. And you're like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong because I'm seeing the lining. You did not. That's what it looks like, because we still have to turn it right side out to the actual right side of the bag. So I'm gonna keep working this, keep working it, keep working it. All right, so what I can do now is I can go ahead and close this at the bottom. So however your favorite method to close something is, that's what you can use. I'm going to kind of push my corners out. And to do that, I'm going to use a little point pushing tool from OESD. It has like a round ball on the top. So it's when you get into a situation like this where you have a lot of layers, you can help push the corners out, but you won't be able to actually poke a hole in it. Don't use the small side, use the bigger side. And then that way you can kind of get those corners out. And then you can close this by bringing the two pieces of the lining together. And then you can close it with a piece of seam, or you can hand stitch it if you'd like. I don't hand stitch, so it's steam a seam for me. All right, so I'm going to grab me some steam a seam or some fabric glue, and I'm going to make this close. I'm going to close this up down here. All right, so I've got this closed with steam a seam, and now I'm just going to begin to turn it to the right side. So, which will be easier because you don't have quite as much and you have a bigger hole where the zipper is. So I'm going to push that in. Okay, there's one corner. I'm going to take my tool from OESD and round that corner out. Let's pull this other one out. Just kind of working it around there with the bigger side of the and then the bottom corners. I try to get my finger into that corner to turn it. And I have the large side of the tool. And I'm just going to kind of work it back and forth until I can get that corner out. There we go. All right. Going to give it a good press. Look at that. How cute is that? Looks like a cell phone bag. Perfect size for your cell phone. So this a little bit more of a push. And there we go. So I will record the fastening of the strap in the class because that way I can use that strap for the class, the actual class. All right, so there you have it. There's our cute little pouch with our little D-rings at the top. Kind of needs some kind of foo-foo hanging on the zipper I pull, I think, but it's awfully cute. All right, for the last step, I followed the folding instructions on page, let me grab it, on page 21 at the bottom where it says attaching the optional strap. So I measured for myself and for a crossbody. So I've cut it to the size that I need, and I'm just going to stitch that down. And I'm using the zipper foot, and just like on the other, I started in the middle. So that would be on the regular zipper foot. And I have it folded like towards the back. So I'm going to grab the narrower zipper foot, which this is the other one that I showed you in the beginning, which is the baby lock version, which also works pretty well because it's going to let me get a little bit closer. And so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start from the middle. And I think I'm just going to plug in the foot control here. And so I'll start by doing a stitch in place, and then I'll go forward a little bit, and then backwards, and then forward, and then backwards. And the last backwards, I'll just kind of go off the edge a little bit, and then I'll do a stitch in place. So that's going to anchor my strap. Let me trim my threads there. So the main thing is to start in the middle and not at the edge, because if you start in the middle, then you don't end up having the strap that shifts the back to the front, because it's going to be pretty thick with all your layers here. So put that down. And then let me stitch in place. And I'm going really slow so that I can really contain this. This is why it wasn't working so well when I just was using the start stop button. I'm going to get a couple more stitches in there. I'll go forward a few more times and back. After I run off the edge, it's hard for me to get back on there. So then stitch in place. And cut. All right, your little bag's all done. And trim your threads. All right, so our little bag is finished.